Have you ever heard of Hopoo games? If you don't recognize the name, then you've probably heard of some of their games. They're responsible for the smash hit game Risk of Rain and its wickedly popular sequel Risk of Rain 2, as well as the upcoming remaster Risk of Rain Returns. Well, did you know that they made another game? Deadbolt was released in 2016 for Windows, Mac, and Linux, and was later ported over to PlayStation and Nintendo Switch in 2018. Let me preface this review by stating that Deadbolt is, by far, the most badass concept for a video game ever conceived by man. You play as the Grim Reaper, and you stop an undead uprising from within the criminal underbelly of the city, or something like that. You could honestly say that this is just a game where you shoot a bunch of meth-addicted zombies in the head, and I wouldn't even disagree with you. Story-wise, this game is very simple. You go from level to level, slowly discovering more and more clues, hinting towards a drug-running conspiracy related to the hottest drug on the scene, ash. Vampires are supplying these drugs, so you burn their supply, but then find out that skeletons are actually turning people into ash, and blah blah blah. It's not terribly important. There are bad guys, go kill them. Now, to this game's credit, there is a fair amount of lore, and the story is fairly interesting, but you wouldn't be stoned in the street for ignoring it. After the first level, which acts as a quick tutorial, we're introduced to the hub world, which is an apartment that the Reaper is moving into. After every level, more and more boxes get unpacked, making the house look more lively. It's pretty unique in that you don't see many game protagonists moving in as a sign of progression. Every level is given to you by listening to the omnipotent Fireplace, who gives you a quick rundown on who you're killing and why, and often speaks in fairly ominous rhymes. No moment to flee. He should not be here. A man with a heart cannot live with me. Like, if some of these aren't the coldest bars dropped in a Dr. Seuss book, then what even is poetry? There are 3 different chapters with 9 levels, each named after the gang involving their own undead type, with Section 1 having you take down a gang of zombies called the Zombie Kings. Very cool. Section 2 being vampires named the 1,000-Year Royals, and Section 3 being skeletons, or the Dredged as they're referred to, as well as demons. Each monster type takes on a different criminal archetype inspired by their lore-based behaviors. I might be reaching here, but honestly, it kind of makes sense, so bear with me. Zombies are slow and mindless, so they're drug dealers and junkies. They're also decaying corpses, which could be some kind of commentary, but I'll just leave that for you to think about. Vampires are nocturnal sex freaks, so they run nightclubs and brothels, and demons are greasers, because they're hot, I guess. And they like cars. Listen, those are the only 2 connections I could think of, and I'm not going to look any deeper into it. The game also describes them as mercenaries from beyond the river Styx, which further cements that this is in fact the most badass video game ever made. I'm not exactly sure how to describe the skeletons in this game. I guess they're kind of like a higher echelon in the criminal underworld, like mobsters or something. How would I put this in a culturally understandable way? The skeletons are like the Dark Army from Mr. Robot. But they're skeletons. There's gonna be like 7 people that know what I mean. On the Reaper side are candles, basically acting like spies that give the Fireplaces intel, and yeah, that's about it. In terms of enemy variants, they're pretty universal, with some minor deviations from chapter to chapter. Each enemy type has a gunman, a runner, a heavy, as well as some special enemy types that occasionally show up every now and then. Chapter 1 is fairly average: a gunman armed with a 9mm pistol, a runner that charges at you with a steel pipe, and a bouncer armed with a sawn-off shotgun. Also introduced in this chapter are the zombies armed with SMGs and their severed heads sitting somewhere in the room indicating which direction they're aiming. There's also a zombie head that hangs from the ceiling, acting like a security camera that will scream if it sees you, alerting everyone in a large radius of your position, as well as hellhounds that act like runners but are slightly faster and can't open doors. Vampires are much taller than zombies and have very slight differences. For instance, the gunman is armed with a 10mm pistol, and the runner charges at you with knives and is much faster in general. She also lunges at you, which you can use to your advantage. If you're fairly skilled and quickly move in the opposite direction that she is lunging, you can dodge her attack completely. Or you could just shoot her from across the room. The bouncer is replaced with a bartender armed with a combat shotgun. His soul is also connected to a phylactery, which will revive him if not destroyed in time. There's also a nightcrawler, which acts like a man-bat thing, armed with a silenced P90. Dredged gunmen are armed with assault rifles, and their runners have a neat quirk in that they're also heavies armed with a sledgehammer with a lot of health, and when they charge at you, they get progressively faster and are very, very scary. There are also these tall bastards that revive dead enemies and turn you into ash if they see you. Oh yeah, I almost forgot to mention the grenaders. They're armed with a grenade launcher, and whenever they hear any sound, they'll just start wildly planting landmines all over the floor. Sometimes you can use this to your advantage, but in more situations than not, if you don't kill them fast enough, there'll just be way too many landmines on the ground, where if you shoot one of them, every single person, including yourself on the floor, will die in a horrific explosion. Demons are pretty standard. Their gunman is armed with a burst rifle, and their runner has a fire sword, and oh yeah, their heavy is armed with a minigun that sprays bullets all over the room. But he also can't open doors, because he's an idiot. He brought a big-ass gun to a fight. I guess it just goes to show you that size doesn't always matter. Unless it's incredibly powerful and can shoot through doors anyway, in which case, yes, size most certainly does matter. Boss fights are in the game, kinda. Each chapter has 2 levels that could be classified as boss fights that are really just regular levels with one specific target to kill. Not to mention that these bosses are basically just bigger enemies with minor deviations within the level to make it seem harder. Chapter 1 has Puff, who is kind of the first boss in the game, but not really, because he's just kind of a bouncer with more range. And Roland is basically just Puff, but with more enemies around him. Not much more to say about these guys. Chapter 2 has Amber and Evelyn, 2 bosses in one level that need to be killed within seconds of each other in order to kill them. And Madame Stella has a lot of phylacteries around the building which need to be destroyed before she can be killed. Chapter 3 has Timur the Tinkerer, who I am very generously granting the title of Boss to, considering he just, sits in his room for the whole level. He's a paranoid trapper that has rigged his house with traps including shotgun-rigged doors, landmines, and light switch bombs. He's also so good at designing traps that he rigged his own room to explode with a light switch that you can very easily see if you understand basic wiring. Very cool. Val, on the other hand, is easily the most interesting boss fight in the whole game. She's a crackshot sniper who shoots at you from a building across the street. Where she shoots is indicated by the red laser sight on the wall, and a sound will play whenever she shoots. There's also around a 2-second delay where the bullet actually hits, buying you some time to move away. She can only see you in the light, so you need to turn off the lights or shoot them out so she can't actually see you. A boss fight? With actual strategy? Well, now I'm hyped up for the final boss of the game, Ibzan, the big cheese of the game, the one you've been hunting this entire time. His gimmick is that when he dies, he reappears a few times. Now, to be fair, there is some strategy to this fight. You want to know what it is? Shoot him with the big gun. Man, all these bosses have promising ideas, but apart from Val, they aren't really expanded upon in any interesting way. I give all the bosses in this game a B-. Man, I've been talking at length about the story and enemies, but I haven't even talked about the gameplay yet. Now, if I had to describe the gameplay in one sentence, I'd describe it as a slower-paced Hotline Miami. If I had to describe it in a longer sentence, I would say this. Unlike Hotline Miami, where a lot of your motions are quick and instinctual, Deadbolt is a lot slower and requires you to be a little bit more methodical with your execution, i.e. you have to rely on planning as well as stealth in order to succeed. A lot of this is done by planning ahead with weapon and vent placements, choosing the right starting weapons, etc. But just like Hotline Miami, a lot of your success is going to come down to trial and error, dying and dying and dying and trying to see what works. This isn't a bad thing necessarily, but it does get fairly tedious after a while. Deadbolt becomes more like a pseudo-puzzle game more than it becomes a stealth action game. And a large reason for that is the fact that you can't really adapt to a situation gone bad. It's easier in most cases to restart a level and do what you find works, rather than to experiment with something that you're essentially gambling on. This isn't like Risk of Rain, where you slowly become an all-powerful god taking damage in the hundreds and dealing it in the thousands. You need to slow down and wait for a victory rather than to brute force your way into one. Again, this isn't a bad thing, it just requires more effort and planning than other games in this genre. And another big part of that is because just like Hotline Miami, I swear this is the last comparison I'm going to make to that game, you can only take one hit until you die, making you vulnerable to pretty much every enemy in the game if you're not ready for them. So it's important to not only take out specific enemy types early on, but it's also important to keep in mind which enemies are in which rooms and either lure them out one by one or just killing them all with a high-powered weapon. There isn't always a right or wrong way to beat the level, it's mostly just whatever you're ready for and whatever you've planned ahead for. In terms of gameplay mechanics, you can knock on doors to lure enemies towards you. This sometimes works and other times doesn't. You can use microwaves to set alarms to lure enemies away, which I think is only in like 4 levels. You can use furniture as cover from bullets, insert Gears of War reference here. Enemies can also use cover, but I honestly think it's just an animation, seeing as they still take equal damage from behind cover. One of the most important mechanics, however, is the ability to enter vents to appear in another room. This can give you a massive tactical advantage in many cases, allowing you to get the drop on otherwise preoccupied enemies. You can use it to escape a gunfight before it gets really bad, and of course, you can do this. Now tell me I'm wrong about this being the most badass game ever made. Now let's talk about the weapons, because there is a fairly large variety of weapons in the game. Wait, what's that doing there? There are 2 types of weapons in this game, purchasable weapons and pickups. Purchasables are available by meeting with Charon, the boatman, where you can spend souls that you gain from completing missions and achievements. There are 2 types of purchasable weapons, primary and secondary. This is fairly easy to understand. You can bring 1 primary and 1 secondary into a mission at a time. But as you can see, there's a lot more primary weapons than secondary. And it doesn't help that nearly every secondary in the game sucks. The only secondary you really need is the hammer, because it can kill gunmen and runners in around 2 to 3 hits, and unlike the knife, can stunlock every heavy in the game and kill them in around 5 to 6 hits. The only enemy that is ill-advised to take on with the hammer is the Nightcrawler, because his recovery time is much faster than any other enemy for some reason. The only other secondary that I would probably recommend is the mouse gun. It has a very low ammo count with only 2 shots, but it has a high accuracy, allowing you to take out enemies with headshots easily. So allow me to quickly summarize these weapons based on your playstyles. Take the knife if you only want to kill gunmen, take the hammer if you want to win, take the mouse gun for reasons I'll explain later, take the blunderbuss if you really don't want to buy anything else, take the flashbang if you don't want to kill anything, take the landmine if you accidentally want to kill yourself, and take the last breath if you suck. Whew. Glad we got that out of the way. Now, in terms of primaries, in my opinion, there's only really 1 you need if you want to beat the game quickly, but I'll talk about them all anyway. The weapon you start out with for free is the 32 revolver. It is highly versatile, with a fairly moderate damage output and decent range, an overall average weapon. Death and taxes are a decent upgrade from your 32, as they have a higher fire rate and higher ammo count. The Revenant has a very high damage output at the cost of being very loud and only having 5 shots instead of the 32's 6. The Headhunter has high headshot damage, essentially allowing you to kill heavies with only 1 shot, if you can line it up properly. The 9mm is basically a 32 with a higher ammo count, and the suppressed 9mm deals slightly less damage but barely makes any noise. The 9mm SMG has a low overall accuracy but a high fire rate, but you can also pick it up in a few levels, so there really is no reason to buy it. The tactical SMG is more accurate, comes with a laser sight, and is suppressed. So it's just better than the 9mm. The semi-auto shotgun is the shotgun. I don't think you need any further explanation than that. The suppressed shotgun is... Do I really have to explain it? The crossbow is a one-shot kill with retrievable rounds. So, the best weapon. And the scythe is a fast and long-range melee weapon. So, to summarize... Average, good, great, bad, average plus more. Average, but quiet. Stupid, stupid, but with a twist. Very loud, kind of very loud. The best, and expensive. The crossbow is also the reason why I consider the mouse gun to be a good weapon. For example, if you kill a bartender with the crossbow and you want to destroy his phylactery, but it's in an elevated position where you can't smash it, you can shoot it with the mouse gun and retrieve the bolt from the bartender's corpse, effectively reducing the amount of ammo required by half. Now, some Deadbolt veterans are probably rolling their eyes at me, saying I'm wasting my money on such a small and stupid gun, and I could probably just use Death and Taxes or the 32 if I just got good at the game. But shut up, okay? Let me play my way and I'll make fun of your playstyle when you review this game. Now, on to the pickup weapons. If I had to guess, I'd say there's around the same amount of pickup weapons as there are purchasables. But do you really think I'm going to fact check myself here? The wiki couldn't even give me this kind of information. Pickups are either placed in the level in a fixed position or can be grabbed from dead enemies. Every heavy in the game, with the exception of 2, drop their weapons, with the 2 being the minigun demon because it just wouldn't make any sense for this dinky little guy to be carrying around a gun that's bigger than him, and these tall bastards because they technically don't have a weapon. You can also pick up 9mm SMGs from these guys with the severed heads. These types of weapons are easily some of the best weapons in the game for 2 reasons. The first being that they act as ammo pickups because you can't reload in the game and you can only use the amount of ammo needed to fill up a mag. With a purchasable weapon, you often need to ration out your bullets, making every single shot count. But if you have half a mag in your SMG, then just walk over another one and boom, full ammo count. Another reason is that these weapons are just generally more powerful than purchasables. Certain weapons feel like upgrades to specific weapons. The 10mm is just better than the 9mm in 32. The combat shotgun feels like an overall improvement over the semi-auto with a higher ammo count, albeit with a slower fire rate, and the Tommy gun and Old World rifle are just better than the 9mm and tactical SMG. There isn't a whole lot of variety in melee weapons. While you can find both the knife and a hammer in a few different levels, the only unique melee pickup in this game is the sledgehammer. It's basically an upgrade to the hammer, but requires a second long charge time, which, if used properly, can be a devastating attack that can kill enemies in one hit, or can just leave yourself vulnerable and ends up getting yourself killed. I rarely ever took the risk, so there's barely any footage of me using this thing. What else is there to talk about? The bolt-action rifle is pretty good. It's only found in the final chapter, but it has incredibly high accuracy and power and can kill any standard enemy in one shot, and a heavy with a headshot. The Silence P90 is... yeah, I'm not doing this. I just gave the purchasables more time than they're worth. In summary, pick up gun and shoot it. My overall rating for the weapons in this game is an A-. Jeez, that was 2 full pages of the script? Holy shit. Now, after all of that, you're probably wondering if this game has any unique gameplay mechanics. You're not? Well, this is my video, I'm going to talk about it anyway. So, what do I mean by unique gameplay mechanics? Well, basically, if the game does something I have either very rarely seen in another game or have never seen at all, then it's a unique gameplay mechanic. For starters, on the console releases of the game, the PS4 and Switch releases, you can actually use a cursor to aim instead of the joystick, just like in the PC releases. The way you do this is by using the touchpad on the PS4 controller and the touch screen on the Switch. But honestly, this acts like more of a handicap than a bonus. On the PS4 version, the version I played for this video, if you want to shoot to where you aimed with the cursor, you have to click down on the touchpad, which can cause you to shift your aim. It's honestly more reliable to just use the triggers to aim and shoot. Lockpicking is pretty cool in this game. In some levels, you need to unlock doors or open safes by picking them. The way this works is by moving the joystick in the indicated direction. Rinse and repeat until you move all the pins. I'm just glad it's not that stupid Skyrim lockpicking. I know it works and it can be fun, but it's in way too many games. We need more innovation like this. Remember Val from earlier, the crackshot sniper, aka the best boss fight in the game? Well, there's an interesting gameplay mechanic at the end of the level where you need to shoot Val with a sniper rifle. The game switches to a first-person view as you pan through the building trying to find her. It's honestly really cool. There's even an achievement for clearing the whole nest with only headshots, and it's pretty challenging seeing as the sniper functions in the same way as Val's, but it's still really fun. The minigame is also used for the end credits, which is a nice fun little bonus for beating the game. The final mission also lets you use the aforementioned candles as sniper support. If you aim and push L1, then they'll shoot wherever you want them to. They only have 6 shots, so you better use them wisely. While support like this isn't rare in games, I just thought I would mention it. Oh, you thought there would be more? Because I made a big deal about it? No, that's it. But no one cares about some stupid-ass guns and gameplay and fun. The real thing that I want to talk about is the soundtrack. Now, in many cases, the soundtrack can make or break your experience with the game, either having songs that just don't fit or feel out of place to just straight up bad soundtracks. Now, Deadbolt's soundtrack, oh my god, this soundtrack just does not miss. It's composed by Christodoulou? I think I pronounced that right.
Christodoulou.
Yeah. This guy has worked on everything that Hopoo has made, and he is one of the best composers in the biz. Now, people are probably wondering if I like Risk of Rain 2 or Deadbolt's soundtrack more, and I gotta be 100% honest. Deadbolt for the win, baby. Let's go! This is hands down one of the best soundtracks in any video game ever made. Bring up that Spotify album. What do we got here? No, we got Now I Am Become Death. We got the Proverbial Dust Biters. And of course, we got the motherfucking undead man Walkin. Holy shit, this is a good soundtrack. If this is not in your top 10 video game soundtracks of all time, no. If this is not in your top 5, no. If Deadbolt is not in your top 3 video game soundtracks of all time, then I will come down on you. The whole soundtrack is on YouTube and Spotify, and you should listen to it right now, because, like I said, I will come down on you. As far as replayability goes, there really isn't much, apart from achievement hunting, I guess, but some of the much harder achievements titled after the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse are just straight up masochistic. Like, look at this one. Beat the entire game without dying or quitting. What about this one? Get a 5-star rating on every mission. Good luck figuring out how that's supposed to work. You could spend 20 minutes and die 15 times on a mission and get 4 out of 5 stars, but if you beat a mission in less than 2 minutes and don't die once, you'll get like 2. Like, what do you want me to do, game? Beat the whole level without firing a single bullet? Maybe you want me to patiently wait for the sun to rise so that the vampires burn in daylight? Maybe I should channel my inner Fortnite ninja Blevins to figure this one out. Or Tiger Woods. There's also an unlockable hard mode that's only gonna make the war trophy harder than it already is. I dare everyone watching this to get the war achievement on hard mode, but don't tell me about it, because it's only gonna make me sad. You could also experiment with every weapon in the game, but not really. I did the math, and you can't actually unlock every weapon in a single playthrough. The amount of souls you can possibly obtain in a single playthrough, plus those obtainable through achievements, is lower than the total cost of every weapon in the game. Not to mention that you're almost never going to get every single achievement in a single playthrough, because you need to beat the entire game without dying within an hour, and get 5 stars in every mission, which is just... God damn it! I give up! I'm done with this! Whew. Sorry, it's just that... thinking about that stupid red horse makes me angry. Hey, editing me here. I've actually been lying to you guys this whole time. So, you know how I said earlier that the best weapon in the game is the crossbow? Well, it turns out that it's actually nearly impossible to obtain 5 stars on every level with the crossbow. The reason for that is because there's a part of the grading system called headshot accuracy, and unless you aim slightly upward with every shot in order to shoot someone's head off, then your accuracy is just going to take a major hit because of, well, gravity. I instinctually never did this because the crossbow is just always a one-shot kill no matter who you hit. The logic also applies to shotguns as well, but I don't think you need me to explain why. So, if you're hunting for 5 stars, the recommended method is to use one of the revolvers, which honestly makes sense. So, I guess I owe you an apology, War. I still hate you, though. An average playthrough would probably take around 2 to 3 hours, but if you know what you're doing and make barely any mistakes, you could easily beat the game in around 30 minutes to an hour. Hell, there's even an achievement for doing so, which 23% of people have done? Jesus. Hard mode is a different story. My first full playthrough on hard took around 3 hours and 25 minutes, so I'll make a blind guess and say that the average is around 3:30. What else is there to talk about? There's a level editor, which is only available on the Windows version, so I can't use it. Oh yeah, the cassette tapes. They're basically collectibles that give you some insight into the lore surrounding some of the undead in the game. You get these by killing specific types of undead, and you can read them back at your base. As you can see, I have all of them here. There are 3 types of each kind and a demon one, and wait, what's this one? Wait, why did the music stop? Is this my memory? And that's about it. As far as I can tell, this doesn't actually do anything apart from being a pretty neat Easter egg. You don't even need it for the achievement for collecting all memory tapes, as it's only available in hard mode. I wish there were more secrets like this hidden in the game, something like a secret otherwise unobtainable weapon, or something that unlocks a secret level. It really would have bumped up the replay value in my opinion. And that is Deadbolt. It's weird to think about, but the internet basically knows next to nothing about this game's existence. Like, look at the Wikipedia page. This is one of the shortest pages I've ever seen on Wikipedia. And look at the Steam page. Ironically, and I know I said I wouldn't do this anymore, there are only 37 more words in the Deadbolt page than Hotline Miami's. So, at least we can agree that Deadbolt beats Hotline Miami there. And don't even get me started on the fandom page. Okay, so a couple things. The wiki is called Game of Deadbolt Wiki, which I just think is a funny title. It only has 38 pages. Charon's page, which doubles as a guide for what weapons you can purchase, doesn't even acknowledge the crossbow and Last Wish's existence. And finally, the discussion page is just empty. No comments, no likes, no threads. Literally the only post on here is advertising that the discussion tab is open. And you know what? That's just sad. Deadbolt is one of those gems hidden beneath a pile of dirt with a museum built on top of it. It's a genuinely fun and interesting experience, but games like these are a dime a dozen. So many interesting games overshadowed by their much cooler counterparts. So many ambitious titles that were abandoned because there just wasn't enough buzz around them. I'm glad to see that Hopoo has become so beloved in the gaming community thanks to Risk of Rain, but the sad truth is that some game developers just aren't so lucky. If there's one thing that you should leave this video with, it's that you should go listen to the soundtrack. Top 2 now, baby! Let's go!
The